a proposed stipulation as to findings of fact and violation of statute with regard to Jean Vidos.
All right, I need to turn over.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn over the gavel. I have recused myself on this issue.
Oh, that was perfect. Right
So I'm turning it over to Mr. Sims.
You were gonna stay in the room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she can stay in the room, she just can't vote.
Right.
or
I'm not voting or
comment.
anything. I'm just
Okay.
not commenting.
And Mr. Bordelot is the board member assigned to look into this. We offered a proposed stipulation to Ms. Vidos, who formerly owned New Orleans Auction Gallery in New Orleans. I'm going to pass out.
We need a motion, second receive report. That way we can have a discussion on the receiving report. Just want to ask you on that behalf. Is there?
But
Is this something that needs to be in executive session?
no, not yet.
Okay.
This is basically,
Just yes or no?
this is an investigative report, if you want to say just in general investigative reports, because I don't know that you want to say yay or nay to this report until you've had a chance to discuss it.
Thank you.
I would like to see a copy of it. I've
And
never
that's
seen
what we're
a copy
doing,
of it.
okay. I'm passing out the one actually signed. This is not the one that was actually proposed to Ms. Vidos. I also have a copy of the changes on that, if anybody wants to see that also. Basically, Ms. Vidos, we had brought this up earlier, there was an issue that was discovered in the bankruptcy proceeding filed by New Orleans Auction Gallery, that the escrow account went into deficit, and NSF checks were issued as a result of that fact. Further, that consignors were not paid within the 60-day period, the 30 to 60-day period involved, until the bankruptcy was filed by New Orleans Auction Gallery, which resulted in the establishment of an escrow account under the control of the bankruptcy court, as well as the payment of all consignors, and that was monitored by the board as well as by the bankruptcy court, which ordered all of them to be paid out of the escrow account. Today, New Orleans Auction Gallery is still in bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court in New Orleans is still monitoring the escrow account and all financials, and is ensuring that all parties are being paid properly. The issue came to us on the question of the fact that because of the deficit in the escrow account, that consignors are not being paid timely. There's been no proceeding begun because of the fact that the matter is still in the jurisdiction of the bankruptcy court. However, it is coming out of bankruptcy probably this month, and the question is, how are we going to handle that? This is a stipulation that would cover that issue as far as Ms. Vidos is concerned.
I have a question. Is the Chapter 7 bankruptcy?
Yeah, no, it's a debtor in possession, Chapter 11.
Chapter 11?
It's for the company, not for her. She has not filed bankruptcy.
Well, I'm sure that most of you all know that with the Chapter 11 bankruptcy, debtors only receive a portion of the funds that's owed to them.
Well, no, this, as far as,
With regard to the referee in bankruptcy, no one is made whole with regard to monies that's owed to them.
well, the consignors have been made whole.
You positive with that?
Yes, I have a list of those paid, and we had a number of complaints filed with the office. All of those were taken care of. This is a debtor in possession. It's not a true Chapter 11. They have gotten financing, and they have operated in full, and we have had no complaints since that first set, as I understand it.
Why weren't they paid within the 30-day period if the money was escrowed? I have a problem.
The escrow account was basically, checks were written out of the escrow account, were not supposed to be made
In
out
other
of
words,
escrow.
they were written out of the auctioneer's account for the escrow account for the auctioneer's own personal use.
For the company's use, as far
For
as
the company's use.
They
Well,
paid expenses out of there for
Is
the
it more
company.
was there more than one auctioneer operating this company, or is it just one?
It's not
Just
executive
one, there's
session.
just one owner. Now, Tessa was an auctioneer working for the company and was salaried. And we had one other, I believe, that was salaried at the
Robin
time.
Ruiz.
But Ms. Vidos was the primary owner.
Or was it personal debts of Ms. Vidos? Was it
Vidos.
your own Vidos?
Um,
Was her personal debts that were paid out of it?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Does anyone have a list of the personal debts that were paid? The company?
Yes, we do have a
Personal debts?
list
Was it
of,
for the operation of the company or whatever? I mean,
I'm not sure it was for the operation of the company.
okay, because it sounds like there was probably some conversion of funds here somewhere along
Yes, there
the
were.
line.
Yes,
And that's
there
a
were.
serious offense.
Yes, it is. So it would be up to the board as to whether they want to entertain a stipulation or have a full hearing.
I would vote for a hearing on this because I think any time that you don't make an accounting of funds to consignees, I think that's a very serious matter. It amounts to conversion of funds.
You put that in the motion.
I'd like to
Diane?
put that in a motion, yes, sir.
Motion made that the board set a full hearing for New Orleans Galleries and Jean Vidos. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Motion made and seconded to have a full hearing for New Orleans Gallery and Jean, is her name Jean?
Gene.
Jean Vidos.
Vidos, yes.
Vidos. Is there any discussion?
I got to discuss, isn't there an ongoing investigation on another?
Yes.
Well, I would suggest that we wait till this other investigation is completed, because there may be some more things that are coming up.
Who's doing the other investigation?
She is.
Oh, you're doing the investigation. Is there an investigation by the referee in bankruptcy? Have any of the creditors actually asked for an investigation or a
There-
non-discharge?
And you can not just, there is no technical referee right now. There are some creditors who have issues with regard to other things than what we're looking at, to be honest with you.
If there's no, technically, if there's no referee that's been appointed, then this board, because it deals with auctions, is a referee.
Of these issues that are within our jurisdiction,
I
that's
just think
correct.
that you need to look into it. I mean, you know.
Well, she is investigating it. I just think we're a little premature.
Well, we can go ahead and set the hearing, the date can be set later.
Oh, you can?
Yes, I mean, we can go
No,
ahead and,
that's correct. We
And
can-
I would like to hear, of course, your Madam Attorney, I would like to hear the results of your investigation too, but I think that the board has to look into it. Conversion of funds is a very serious matter.
But we don't have a complaint yet, do we? A formal complaint?
well, bankruptcy made that complaint.
Yeah. Right
Yeah,
now,
no.
it's in their hands. They kind of oversee.
But there's no referees. There's
What
no
I'm
one
saying,
that's-
she's correct, but what I'm saying, we can go ahead and have her motion, vote for it, and then a hearing date can be set later.
Yeah, we can set it
You
later.
set a docket
Someone
date.
behind you
I'm
has
sure
a
we're going to
comment.
have to have a hearing, but we got more stuff that we're looking at.
Who-
Yeah, the board, just so you know, the board had asked me to look into this, and because they're posting all their financials online in Pacer, we've been pulling them down, looking at, and that's the first thing you notice when you look at it.
All right,
But
board through.
To, can we amend it to a later date, or to set a date at a later time?
You can set, she can do that, she can put,
Yeah, we can.
You can do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's good with my second also.
All right, if y'all can reword that, we'll do that.
all right, we got public comment. Sherry, you
I
got
just have a
something?
question, why, on the board of ample funds, why have they not hired a contract investigator to be able to spend a lot more time investigating this particular issue, as it is very complex, and that would free Ms. Gallup, to be able to actually prosecute better?
Well, there is a contract investigator involved.
But he
Through
said
my
you were
office.
investigating.
Well, yeah, but it's under my control,
She's the one that
yeah.
reports to me.
Yeah, I'm not doing this alone,
May I ask
believe
who
me.
the investigator is?
I would prefer not to say at this time.
I take it that the bankruptcy is pending in New Orleans?
Yes.
Okay. So therefore, it's accessible to the general public, so.
That's correct.
I didn't get that on.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Any other
No,
comments?
that was it. I just was wondering why there
Robert?
wasn't an
Well,
investigator.
I'll be brief. I think, as I alluded to back in January, there's a plethora of information available from Pacer. I have downloaded every document, and I'm glad to see that this board is finally taking the approach that there's problems here. And there's been some problems here. Been some problems here for almost a year. So, I think Ms. Jacobs' point is very well taken, that this board is the referee of that. And I am really glad to see that finally almost a year after the bankruptcy took place, and the obvious problems were there. The board's looking into it. So that'll be it for me.
And let me just say this, we began looking at it when it first happened.
Alan, just a minute, you yield the balance of your time?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Vidos does not presently have a license as an auctioneer. It was not renewed in January because of this. And this was the situation that left us with the decision as to what we're going to do with her license. So I'll go ahead and take care of that.
Was it not renewed at her choice or the board's?
It was at the board's choice.
The board's choice.
Well, then I would like a follow-up question, then, if she has no license, by whose license was the March auction conducted?
That's New Orleans Auction Gallery has a separate license that was approved by this board.
Is that still in operation now?
You owners, isn't it?
It's about to be, yes. No, it's been a separate entity since sometime last year.
Well, what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, I mean,
A business
the
license?
auction exchange is operating only because you have a qualified auctioneer there
That's what
in order
I was
to be able to operate the business, is that correct?
No.
The entity itself can't operate without a licensed auctioneer.
Well, it has a licensed auctioneers on staff, yes.
Oh, they do have other licensed
Yes.
auctioneers
Yes.
who are not affected by this lady's auction
That's correct.
certificate.
They were just strictly employees, no.
But they are licensed auctioneers?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good, okay.
Was it issued a firm license? Is that the reason?
That's correct.
Okay, that's.
It has a separate firm license.
Yeah.
I don't remember what date, but that's, as a result of all this, we requested that they obtain their separate license.
Right after bankruptcy
Right
filed.
after the bankruptcy was filed.
And you say that it's now under operation with new owners?
That's possible that after I believe there is something scheduled this month to change the ownership. It's been pending now for about 6 months. There have been a number of, it was either going to go to public bid or it was going to go through a procedure within the court, and I think they're about to resolve that, is what I understand from the court proceeding.
Robert.
It may or may not go. As you're aware, MS Rao is one bidder, Susan Crone is another bidder. Those are the only two known active bidders. Mr. Schaffenberg pulled out.
Right.
But there has been a competing plan put forward by New Orleans Auction Gallery that extends out for as long as 7 years. They do have the prerogative to accept that plan if they deem it to be in the interest of the best creditor. So it's not a foregone conclusion that the firm is going to be, that means I'm up?
No, I forgot to press it,
Oh.
so you got a little extra window there.
So, it's not a foregone conclusion that this thing is going to emerge under different ownership on March 29th, which is the ballot date.
No, and that's true. That is true, but it's, depending on what happens, then, well, of course, the board is going to continue to monitor this and make decisions with regard to how to handle it, depending on what happens in the court proceeding. Right now, because it's being monitored by the court directly, we have not been concerned about the status.
All right, well,
Until it comes out of court, Robert, there's really nothing we can do.
What I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to get a copy of the schedules in the bankruptcy proceeding, and then I'll send it to Sandy, and Sandy can distribute it.
We have it. They've been
We have
serving
that?
us, yes, and I have a copy.
I would be interested to know who the creditors are and make sure that everybody's been made whole.
Now, the creditors I don't know about. The consigners have.
Well, I'm talking about people that have put stuff on consignment to
Yes,
the
no,
auction house.
as I understand it, and I've looked at the records, the consigners themselves have been made whole except for 2, and that is not a dispute as to whether or not it was sold. It was purchasers who are concerned that they bought something they didn't understand what they were buying. So those are 2 pending disputes that are in court proceedings separately.
I have one last question.
You done, Ron?
Well, and to that point, one of those, who is a member of the Unsecured Creditors Committee, there was $75,000 scheduled in legal fees alone on a given date pertaining to his claim. The other one, I can't remember his name, but he too. So it's arguable. I mean, I realize they're on the other side. You know, it's arguable to say that, yeah, consigners have all been paid, but you have bidders that clearly indicate that they have valid claims.
If you're talking about legal fees on the buyer, then
I'm
there's-
not concerned about that.
I'm not,
Lawyers don't
nobody's
get paid a
concerned
lot of
about that
times.
because that's non-collectible.
That's
No, I'm
not
talking
fair.
about legal
Right.
fees
They're out.
that New Orleans Auction Gallery owed at a flash point in time that was owed in relation to that matter.
That to me is not as important as making a consigner whole.
Well, the consigners all got paid when
Because-
Mr. Schaffenberg stepped up with
Well,
460, whatever it was,
But
$400,000.
you just said he pulled out of the buy process.
That is
right?
correct.
Yeah.
He went in November. He is a CPA. He made some recommendations to them with regard to their accounting system. New Orleans Auction Galleries basically said as a result of that, they would hire a forensic accountant to try to sort through some things. And I'm not going to mention the name, but I assume that surely this most recent filing that involved $2 million, I'm sure that's bound to be, I know that the New Orleans Auction Gallery said they're going to look into it, so I assume that it's going to be looked into.
I have a question, please.
That's it.
Is that all, Rob?
No, I'm done.
Yeah, Sherry.
Sherry?
Okay, so as I understand this, Jean Vidos' license was not renewed.
That's
By
correct.
choice of the board as of the first of the year.
That's correct.
But New Orleans Auction Gallery was issued a firm license.
Right.
To someone. Who was the owner of record that his firm license was listed?
It's a corporation.
The corporation itself, it does not, because it's in bankruptcy, it's not, it's theoretically, Ms. Vidos has stock in it as well as others. And
Whose name is on the paperwork, man?
Whose name is on the corporation? That's what I want to know.
Whose name's on the corporation?
Is this an LLC with 100% ownership of one person?
No.
Or is it an
No.
LLC with ownership of 5 or 6 people?
Actually,
Are they auctioneers?
that's part of what was in dispute in this matter.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying, is because it was a separate entity, and because all of these matters being resolved by the bankruptcy court, because there were individuals who came in and said, I have an ownership interest, I gave money to them, I should have stock, I should have ownership. So we left it in place because it was being monitored by bankruptcy and by the court, the judge directly. And it had other licensed auctioneers on staff. For the most part, the only reason, we would have had, if we shut down a company that was in bankruptcy trying to earn money to pay creditors, I don't think that the bankruptcy court would have allowed us to do that.
You can't shut them down, but the question remains is whether or not any of the stock of this licensed corporation, any of the holders of the stock, are in fact licensed auctioneers, and whether or not their license had been revoked, or maybe it's the only a licensed auctioneer that owns corporate stock, Ms. Vidos. I would be interested in knowing that.
Yeah, I think she's the only one of the licensed auctioneers who actually has.
You have a licensed corporation with no licensed auctioneer, and I have a problem with that.
What about staff auctioneers that are licensed?
Wait.
They're not owners of the corporation, and you license the corporation.
Wait, our statute does not require a licensed auctioneer to be an owner of an auction firm. It's a separate license. And we have a number of auction firms that do not have licensed auctioneers as owners.
I think that's a problem.
Well, that's what the statute, yeah, that's the
What
statute.
happened is we gave the license to Jean Vidos' corporation, so basically we just gave Jean a business license.
No, because Jean doesn't have any control over the organization right now.
Well, because it's in bankruptcy.
Because of bankruptcy, and that's what I wanted to clarify before it comes out of bankruptcy. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Question I know both of y'all are attorneys, so whichever
I still
one,
am.
whichever one wants to answer.
Right.
Under the Federal Bankruptcy Act, I know this is a Chapter 11 debtor in possession, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't think this board could legally deny a business license. I think the court could order us, under court order, to issue a license through the judgment of the judge. And then it would be held, he would be the responsible one, even though he's not a licensed auctioneer, but he's an officer of the court.
The court can't,
They can,
he doesn't have that responsibility.
he doesn't have the responsibility, but as long as it's a debtor in possession, Chapter 11, I don't think we can take the business license.
You can't take the business license, but when they come out of bankruptcy, and if they are actually in Chapter 11, they are apparently trying to reorganize.
That's correct.
That's
Then
definitely
we can
something-
take it.
Then you surely ought to look into it.
That's what I'm saying.
I know-
After it clears the
Now,
court, we can
right,
do
As
it.
a realtor, and I have a corporation, my corporation's license is based upon the fact that I'm a licensed broker. I
Okay.
think that's important.
Is there any other discussion, any other questions?
Yes.
Freddie?
Two questions, and let me just say this, Greg, before you start, because I watched
Hey, you on
Robert
the
stand
clock?
up here.
Already started, so
Okay,
you
well,
better get it.
I watched
All
him
right,
stand up here.
let's go, Freddie.
I wanna
Instead of
make a
arguing
statement.
about the clock, go ahead.
Because he stood up here and he never said the 5 things, and then y'all talked, and then his time ran out. The point
Who?
I'm making is, that's what, he has to have 3 minutes of time.
Who's that, who's with you?
Robert.
Robert, I gave him an extra minute and a half.
Robert
'cause I forgot
yielded
to
his
start it.
time back, Freddie.
Okay, let me just say what I'm saying happen. So, you all are having discussions, and then the person standing up here makes one statement, and that's all that's going on. But my question would have been, that Ms. Norris auction guy was issued a license under a different, assumingly a different auctioneer that's licensed with the state of Louisiana in good standing, and who has to take what I could call full responsibilities of the auction matters. Someone asked who was that auctioneer. Well, you have to have a licensed auctioneer to conduct an auction in the state of Louisiana. If not, then the auctioneer is considered loaning his license. If he's not in control of assets and what goes to the license, correct me if I'm wrong.
The court's in charge of assets. Then there ain't nothing
But
you can
that's
do about
correct,
that.
But the courts also stipulate in hindsight that the auctioneer that's standing up, that's taking the full responsibility of the auction, has to also be accountable to, because their license is on the line, correct me if I'm wrong. And that's what we are now,
Well, I don't know, Freddie. I mean,
Jacobs.
you was on the board when they voted to give the license, so that happened last year, right after I got on the board, and you sat there and voted for
I
it.
wasn't aware that New Orleans, Ms. Vidos did not renew a license, and I wasn't aware that someone else had stepped up to the plate to put that license in place. And that's where someone else has to be there with their license in place.
Well, I know there's 2 other licensed auctioneers in this state that's working there.
Okay, and what is their responsibility?
I have no idea, Freddie.
Well,
They're
that's what I'm
working for the
asking. That's why I
court. They're
just
working for the court.
Oh, they work for the court, is that the case? The
I mean, they're in
auctioneer
debtor in possession. They're working under the control of the
I'm asking
court.
attorney who's
Well, if you're asking me, I don't think that's correct, because in the 42 years that I've been practicing law, I mean, the federal bankruptcy referee, and there's none appointed yet, or a federal judge that may eventually oversee this in bankruptcy, is not going to determine the licensure of an auction company, and whether or not the company has to maintain its license in order to get out of Chapter 11. That's not something that they would do. That's something that's delegated to the board.
That's correct, and that's what I was saying. And that's why I'm wondering why we discussing moving to the side when the issue's at hand.
And I would like to know,
The
what
board
the
needs to
cause of the
address it because it's
bankruptcy
been
is,
over
how
a
many
year.
people, how the
And
funds
nothing
were
has been done.
diverted. I mean, I would like to know that. That's serious.
And I certainly can provide that to you. I may even have it
Okay,
with me today.
all right.
Is that all, Freddie?
Yes, it's been over a year and the board hasn't done anything about it. That's why I wonder why it's taking so long for something to be done.
Is there any other discussion? Any other public comment? Hearing none, the board will proceed to vote. I'm going to ask Ms. Edmondson to do a roll call vote on this with the exception of Ms. Steinkamp, who is chairman, who has recused herself.
Mr. Bristow, so the vote officially,
Yeah, read it
yes.
again.
It is a motion to set hearing at a future date
Set a hearing at a future
On
date.
Jean Vidos.
on Jean
On
Vidos.
Jean Vidos. At a future date to be determined by the board representative, which is Greg Bordelon, and the attorneys involved.
Once all the
I would like to
information
just
was gathered.
correct the motion and make it a little bit more succinct. The motion to set a hearing on Ms. Vidos as to whether or not she should maintain her auctioneer's license at a later date.
Or individualized.
Right, her individual license.
I will adjust my second to that.
Okay, motion's been adjusted.
Okay.
There'll be a roll call vote with the exception of Tessa Steinkamp, the chairman, who recused herself.
Mr. Bordelon,
Yes.
Mr. Brister,
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Little,
Yes.
Mr. McMillin,
Yes.
Mr. Sims.
Yes. Motion is passed.